Welcome back to the Forgotten Trail podcast, where we explore the legal battles that shape family law and custody in America. I'm your host, Damien, and today we're discussing a case that is heartbreaking as it is pivotal. The story of Baby Veronica. This case brought the Indian Child Welfare Act, known as ICWA, into the national spotlight and raised heated debates about parental rights, culture preservation, and what it truly means to act in the best interest of a child. Our story begins in 2009 in Oklahoma, when Veronica was born to a non-native mother, Christina, and a Cherokee father, Dustin. At the time of Veronica's birth, Dustin was serving in the U.S. Army and living apart from Christina. Their relationship had already ended. While pregnant, Christina decided to place Veronica for adoption without informing Dustin, believing he wasn't interested in being involved. She contacted and connected with a family from South Carolina whose name is Matt and Melanie, who were eager to adopt a child. When Veronica was just a few days old, the family took her to her home to South Carolina. But this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a long, drawn-out custody battle. After learning about the adoption, Dustin objected, arguing that as Veronica's biological father and a member of the Cherokee Nation, he had the right to raise his daughter. His argument invoked the Indian Child Welfare Act, or ICWA, a federal law enacted in 1978. The ICWA was created to address forced removal of Native American children from their families and tribes. It prioritizes keeping Native children with their families and within their tribal communities whenever possible. In recognition of this historical trauma caused by the state-sponsored child welfare practices. In 2011, when Veronica was 2 years old, the South Carolina courts ruled in favor of Dustin, citing ICWA. Veronica was removed from the only home she had ever known and placed with her biological father in Oklahoma. This sparked an outrage from the adoptive family and ignited a national debate about ICWA and adoption and the parental rights. The adoptive family appealed, and the case eventually made its way to the United States Supreme Court in 2013. The central question was this: did ICWA apply in this case? And did it justify removing Veronica from her adoptive parents? The adoptive family argued that ICWA shouldn't apply because Dustin had initially relinquished his parental rights. They also emphasized that Veronica had bonded with them as her parents. Dustin and the Cherokee Nation countered that ICWA was designed specifically to protect Native children like Veronica, ensuring they remain connected in their culture heritage. In a controversial 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that ICWA did not apply because Dustin had had no custody of Veronica before the adoption proceedings. This decision cleared the way for the adoptive family to regain custody of Veronica. The fallout from the Supreme Court's decision was devastating for everyone involved. In 2013, when Veronica was 4 years old, she was removed from her father's care in Oklahoma and reunited with her family in South Carolina. For Dustin, it was a heartbreaking loss. He had built a strong bond with his daughter during the 2 years she lived with him. The Cherokee Nation decreed that the decision as a weakening of ICWA, warning it could pave the way for more Native children to be separated from their culture roots. For the adoptive family, it was a bittersweet victory. They loved Veronica deeply and were relieved to have her back. But they face significant public backlash, with some accusing them of disregarding the importance of Veronica's Cherokee heritage. And then there was Veronica, the child at the center of the storm. Experts warned that being shuttled between families could have long-term emotional and psychological effects. The Baby Veronica case wasn't just about one child. It sparked a national conversation about adoption, tribal sovereignty, and the rights of Native families. Critics of the Supreme Court decision argued that it undermined the very purpose of ICWA, making it easier for Native children to be adopted outside their communities. Supporters claimed it struck a necessary balance between biological and adoptive parents' rights. But the case also highlighted semantic issues, the lack of understanding about ICWA among many states and courts, the complexity of navigating custody cases involving Native children, and the deep, ongoing tension between preserving cultural heritage and meeting the immediate needs of a child. So, what can we learn from this tragic story of baby Veronica? First, it underscores the importance of ICWA in protecting Native families and communities. While it's not a perfect law, its intent is to address historical injustice and ensure that Native children remain connected to their heritage. Second, it reveals the deep emotional toll that custody battles take on everyone involved. At the heart of this case was a little girl who didn't ask to be a part of any legal or culture tug of war. And finally, it reminds us that family law is rarely black and white. These cases are filled with gray areas where love, rights, and culture preservation often collide. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey with the story of baby Veronica. Cases like this spark a reminder of how critical it is to understand the laws and policies that shape the lives of children and families.